Guitarristas, yo creo que uno de los productos más fuertes que se han anunciado este año. Estoy hablando del Line 6 Helix Stadium y además tengo la suerte de tener a Eric Klein conmigo, que bueno, voy a poderle hacer preguntas, curiosidades que genuinamente tengo sobre el producto. Eric, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So, I think this is the first time that people in Europe can freely play with the Helix Stadium.
Correct.
We had the chance to hear many samples already of the new Agora models.
Yes.
But this is the first time people are trying. Do you see happy faces?
See lots of happy faces. I just got down here. I've been doing a lot of demos and interviews and stuff all week. So first day, this is my first Guitar Summit. So I'm super excited. The building's awesome. Everybody's cool. We're having a blast. So far so good. Yeah. We have only three units, and they're just on headphones, and it's not like $1,800 headphones or anything like that. But yeah.
I'm sure that you had the chance to make tutorials many times about Line 6 products.
Yep.
Would you say this is the easiest one to program and to make a preset, for instance?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, I mean, I would say for how sophisticated it is, I would say it's very, very easy.
Okay.
And very fast. But it does a lot of stuff.
All right.
So there's a lot of information that we'll be coming out with. As soon as I get back, I'm going to dig into the manual. I mean, the manual's written, but I'm going to be going in and changing some of the language of the manual, making sure that that's all drum tight. As far as something that's a flagship like this product, I'd say it's easier to use than Helix.
Okay.
I'd say it's much faster to get around than Helix. It's not that Helix isn't fun to use, but this is like we actually really spent a lot of time trying to make the whole process of making sounds and process of making music fun, with lots of cool contextual tools and things that kind of incentivize people to use it in a certain way and maybe play longer, maybe explore things, maybe make more interesting sounds than they would normally from a traditional multi-effect. So
far, have you seen that people tend to use the tactile screen more than the knobs? Or each individual has a different approach with the stadium?
Everybody uses it a little differently. We're actually really happy that it seems to be, people are using it sort of in kind of a mishmash. So they'll use the knobs, they'll use the buttons, so they're definitely using the stuff we gave them, which is exciting. So
okay. Let's get into the sounds. There's something I'm very intrigued by the, what's the name of that feature that idealizes your amp? Is the hype function.
Yeah.
But what does it do exactly? Or asked differently, what things of an amp I wouldn't like, for example, of a real amp that I would like to remove?
So we always go back to the Marshall Plexi, right? So few people have actually played a real Marshall Plexi at the volume they sound best at, right?
Okay.
But everybody's heard recordings of that Plexi, and the approach to how you play an amp in the room is very different from how you might approach that amp, say, in the control room while it's being mic'd up in another room.
Okay.
Plus, there's an idea that people have in their heads of what an amp must sound like, or they expect it to sound like, and oftentimes that's is a contrast to what's actually in the room and what actually is measured. So what Hype attempts to do is and it's different for every single amp.
Okay.
So it might apply some dynamics, it might apply some deeper level tweaks to the model that aren't exposed to the user. It might apply multiple stages of filtering or EQ, but it's optimized for that particular amp. So the idea is that if you've actually played a Plexi, if Hype is all the way down and you play, you're like, oh, that's that Plexi sound. But if you turn it up, you're like, oh, that's the Plexi I might have heard on that record, or that might be, it might get me to the sound that I might expect a Plexi to sound like without having to typically dig into additional EQ or dynamics or filter blocks to get the sound you want.
So if I turn the Hype off, it's like the model, what you guys modeled, raw.
Correct.
If I turn it on, it has a special sauce.
Special sauce, yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah,
that's it. I also wanted to ask you about the function where you can automatize many things that happen on
Showcase,
stage.
yes.
Yes. This is something that I would like because I tend to try to control everything that's going on my rehearsal room with my band.
Yeah.
My bandmates are like absolutely angry at me because I try to control everything. But I see there are lots of musicians that have that same profile.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So it might be different in other places of the world. In LA, at one point when I was putting the whole showcase thing together, go and talk to sound engineers at any of the clubs on Sunset, any of the larger venues like the El Reys and the Fondas and Wilterns, and they're like, yeah, 65% of bands coming through have some sort of accompaniment, whether it's intros, whether it's segues, whether it's somebody backstage triggering things for the bands.
Absolutely.
And when you're talking about large touring acts, it's closer to 95%, where they actually have an army of techs doing all of that stuff to make sure that everything goes off without a hitch.
Yeah.
And Showcase was birthed back in the 90s, honestly. It was my band who was trying to pull off these things, and I had a big rack of gear and a laptop with Logic, and it was triggering like 3 different Line 6 Echo Pros, which you could control the looping functionality from MIDI notes. So I would just put those looping functions on the timeline in Logic, and it would record the singer during the first chorus, and then she can harmonize with herself during the second chorus.
Oh, that's
And
complex,
it was complex at the time, and it's gotten a little easier, and there are tools like Ableton Live that make it much easier, but you're still relying on computers, you're still relying on a bunch of accessories, and it's one of those things that kind of makes you not want to do it unless you're really, really into it.
Yes.
And we thought that there are advantages in making a more compelling live performance that allow you to focus more on your performance instead of the technology on stage. And it's not a bunch of magic. It really is the command center commands just mapped across a timeline with audio.
Okay.
And there are going to be a lot of more features coming in the future too. But to start, we wanted to keep it pretty simple.
After reading the spec sheet of Helix Stadium, I was like, okay, touchscreen, check.
Yeah.
Cloning, check.
Yep.
New modeling, check. It has like everything that's hot in the modeling world, in the multi-effects world. Wasn't it stressing to create something like that has everything?
Oh, it doesn't have anywhere close to what we wanted. So when we design new products, we talked about it this morning at the present. We talk about the 3 pillars, the guidelines that kind of usher in the product, what we have to follow for everybody from engineering to marketing to everything. We also start out with an FAQ, a frequently asked questions page. So years before we release a product, we start out with an FAQ.
Wow.
We imagine the questions that people would have, and the number one question was, okay, what's new about this? And then just pages and pages and pages and pages of all of the new things in Helix Stadium. And as we got closer and closer and closer, we had to rip things out and rip things out.
I understand.
And we ended up ripping like 80% of those bullets out. So we have big plans for Stadium going forward. We just can't talk about them right now.
Okay. We'll have to wait to know all that. But so far, Eric, it is great to have the chance to try Helix Stadium. I can't wait to do it because I haven't tried it yet myself. So, Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For answering our questions.
Appreciate it. Yep.
Guitarristas, vamos a probar la Helix Stadium.